Hi everyone, welcome. In this Inner Culture Codes video, we're going to talk about what really happens when you are experiencing progress in your spiritual growth. So, let me ask you a question. When you imagine progress in your life, what do you expect it to feel like? Does it feel like relief, freedom, lightness, like finally exhaling after holding your breath for years? That's what most people expect. And sometimes, yes, growth does feel that way. But if we are being honest, most of the time it doesn't. Most of the time, growth feels strange, uncomfortable, quietly unsettling. And that confuses people because nobody told them this part. Most people think progress should feel like the absence of discomfort. So when anxiety shows up, they assume something is wrong. When fears appears, they think they are not ready, but in truth, they are. When their body resists, they assume they are failing, and they start asking questions like, why am I still anxious if I'm doing the work? Why do I feel worse instead of better? Why does growth feel harder, not easier? Here's the part that changes everything. Real progress doesn't remove sensation. It changes how your system experiences sensation. And that is the big difference. That is the difference that matters. Progress, in point of fact, is not about becoming fearless. It is about becoming regulated in the presence of fear. It is not about eliminating anxiety. It is about expanding your capacity to hold it without collapse. It is not about comfort. It is rather about stability without discomfort. That is why real progress feels different than people expect. Now, here is how you know growth is real and aligned. Not because everything feels good, but because things feel manageable. Have you ever experienced fear at some point in your life, and the same thing that used to scare you does not scare you anymore as you've gone through that process? It is the same. When growth aligned with capacity, the experience changes and anxiety becomes tolerable instead of overwhelming. Fear becomes informational and less emotional instead of paralyzing. Discomfort becomes stretching instead of threatening. The shift is subtle but profound, and most people miss it because they are looking for fireworks instead of regulation. Anxiety isn't the enemy people think it is. Anxiety is a signal of load, a signal of gauging capacity. It tells you how much your system is carrying. When capacity is low, anxiety feels like a drowning. Fear may appear as well, and it hijacks your thought, tightens your chest, and scrambles your focus. But when capacity increases, anxiety doesn't disappear. It changes shape, and that is the main point here. It changes shape, and if you don't recognize that change, that shape, then you'll experience it as something else, as anxiety, fear, and a bunch of other things. It becomes In point of fact, something like I feel activated, but I'm still here. I feel pressure, but I can breathe. I feel nervous, but I am not unraveling. And that's progress. Not because anxiety vanished, but because you can stay present inside it. Fear isn't supposed to leave. It is, in point of fact, part and parcel of the essential intelligence of your survival mind or your survival being. So let's clear something here. Fear is not a flaw in the system. Fear is part of being alive, aware, and responsive. The problem isn't fear. The problem is when fear overwhelms capacity. That's when everything goes haywire. So when capacity is low, fear shuts you down. You freeze, you avoid, you overthink, you procrastinate, you collapse. But when capacity grows, right? When capacity grows, fear becomes information. It starts to sound like this matters to me, there is risk here, but I can handle it. Fear stops screaming and it starts communicating. And that's not weakness, that is intelligence. So, what does that mean? Discomfort is often misunderstood as well. So, when people treat discomfort as danger, either because the way it feels in the body or it's a sensation that is intense, right? Discomfort is usually just this seen as a sensation of stretching beyond the familiar. So when capacity is low, discomfort feels like threat. The system says, this is too much, I can't hold it, I can't retreat. So, of course, psychologists then will call this fight or flight mechanism, right? Fight or flight or freeze mechanism. But when capacity increases, discomfort changes tone. I'm sure you have experienced this many times over. So, let's talk further about these symptoms. So, from a psychosomatic point of view, it's not that you think differently or you feel differently. It's more so that progress itself then starts to feel like your breath is turning faster, your body is settling sooner after activation, and your emotions just go crazy. And that is, of course, the trigger. So, I want to say this. In a general sense, when it comes to inner culture codes and your journey through growth, real progress is often quiet. It doesn't always feel empowering. It doesn't always feel victorious. It doesn't always feel inspiring. It feels stable, which can be anticlimactic if you're used to chaos. So, this marks the end of this video. And until next time, have a good day, take care, and be blessed. Bye-bye.